There we go. As a company that I founded in 2000, so earlier this year we celebrated 25 years, which is an awfully long time. I still haven't really processed what that means to have owned and run a business for 25 years. Maybe I'm just stubborn or can't think of anything else to do, but it's been a great experience. I think is actually the second company that I started. I started a business when I was in my sort of early mid 20s, another design and advertising firm. Actually, when I lived in Louisiana, I was telling Yvonne a little bit about living there. Um, and I only bring that up sort of in the context of this conversation. Um, Believe it or not, I don't have a degree in advertising or marketing, and I don't have a degree in business. I have a degree in international relations, which was a wonderful course of study at the time. But I say that just to give a little bit of context to the fact that I've been a business owner most of my life and don't have a business degree. And so it was interesting when Van called and um, just asked me to speak a little bit about the Mini-MBA program. The first thing I had to do was to remember when I actually took the program. And fortunately, I have my diploma or my certificate sitting in my office. And I realized I took the program back in 2010. So the first most obvious thing is that that was a long time ago, 15 years ago or so. But the part that may not be as obvious, I can't see the picture of everybody on the screen, but 2010 was the year that we were just beginning to emerge from the recession. And for us, as with most people who are running a business at that time, the recession of 2008 was brutal. There's no other way to describe it. Financially, it was devastating, and sort of, in terms of confidence you have running a business during that time and looking for help and looking for support. And there's so many things going on that are sort of beyond your control. It was a very challenging time. I now have some perspective on it, so I can speak about it without breaking into tears, but we'll just leave it at that. But I think that is a good perspective because the fact that I enrolled in the Mini-MBA program in 2010, coming out of 2 years of kind of dealing with the recession and losing business and just having those financial struggles. I guess there was something that was going on in my head that told me that this was going to be a good investment, or this was a time to invest more in myself and my business. And yeah, somehow I saw the value in making that investment and going back to school and sharpening my skills. And I can tell you that I know that at the time I couldn't afford it, even though I think the price is very reasonable. Van and Molly did not tell me to say that, but I do think, compared to other programs I've taken, the price is very affordable and very much worth it. But that was still a challenge for me at that time, again, coming out of the recession, but somehow I saw the value in it. And it turned out to be true. It was a great investment of both money, but also of my time in terms of how it helped me and helped my business. Um, there are a lot of things that I got out of the program itself. And one of them is simply, I don't know where everybody is in terms of their career and from a business standpoint. But for me, taking that time to step away from my business and dealing with the things that I was dealing with, which were pretty stressful at the time, and stepping into that classroom was sort of a way of refocusing my energy and attention and really, kind of getting out of the weeds of the day-to-day business and beginning to think forward and think ahead about how I wanted to take action and both in my own professional life as well as growing my business. Um, I think that part of what I wanted was to be around, call it a cohort of other, smart entrepreneurs and business people, and of course, professors, and just to immerse myself in a learning environment. And I knew that it would help me mentally and emotionally sort of recommit to my purpose and really just be in an environment that I enjoyed. And it's funny, like Molly was reading off the attributes and sort of the features of the program itself, and no one talks about the fact that it's a really fun and enjoyable environment to be in. But that is a big part of it, to step into the classroom, whether it's in person or virtual, And to be around people who bring good energy and are excited to be there is one of the values of the program. And so Molly, maybe in the future you can add that to your slides that in
Sounds
addition to
good.
great learning opportunity, you're also gonna have fun. And I think, I say that and I laugh when I say that, but that's pretty important. And I've been in business for a long time, and so being in good places, in good spaces is important. I guess, part of what I was thinking about at the time, again, so in 2010, I was what, like 20 years into my career already. Again, I'd already been running this business for 10 years at the time. And what I knew was that I knew a lot about my industry. I knew a lot about marketing and advertising and branding, and I had a depth of knowledge and expertise in that area. And clearly, that was valued in the marketplace because clients were hiring us to do that. And I knew too how to build a team in that sense. In other words, I knew how to hire designers and writers and give them guidance and provide leadership and mentorship in terms of marketing and advertising and help them become better at the things that we did really well. But I just also had this sense that there was more that I needed to know um, about my business itself. I knew that there were probably some things that I could be doing better and that just things at that point in my career that I ought to have a better handle on. There's also something that happens as you grow a business, and that is that in my role, and especially true today, another 15 years later, uh, my personal role in the business grows beyond that sort of technical expertise in marketing and advertising. And I truly, as a CEO, I'm running the business on a day-to-day basis and on a visionary basis, more so than I'm actually doing the work itself. And so the skills that I need to do my job and to run the business at this point are way different than what I needed when I started the business. And so going back to school and the mini MBA was a way for me to begin to sort of figure that out. And one thing that you'll hear is sort of the cliche, but on top of having this sense that I needed to get better at some of the things about running the business, I also simply didn't know what I didn't know. And I wanted to be in an environment where people brought up things that maybe I hadn't thought about before and forced me to look at the business in a different way. And again, like I didn't see that as a sort of an admission that I was lacking in skills. I saw it as an exciting opportunity to grow and just get better. And that was exciting. I wanted applicable knowledge. I know Molly sort of touched on that a lot of the things that you learned, and certainly the things that I learned were actionable at the time. I mean, I wanted to know more about finance and HR. I actually enjoyed finance, by the way. I even enjoyed the accounting. Um, um, but finance and HR and accounting and operations and marketing. Back in 2010, we didn't have any classes on AI. I don't understand why that was why no one taught me that back then. I'd be way ahead of the game if somebody had thought to mention that in 2010. But that's what I was looking for. Um, I've thought about this a little bit about how do I express, what were my desired outcomes and what were the outcomes I actually achieved in the program. And first of all, as I sort of mentioned before, I loved college. I loved getting my undergrad degree. I went back to school and took different classes and different things. None of them sort of as focused as the mini MBA, but it wasn't new to me to go back and sit in a classroom and know something I enjoyed. And in fact, that was sort of a value in my family. My father has a PhD and raised me to really enjoy learning in academia. So I was comfortable with and excited about the idea of going back to Crummer. So let me see if I can articulate this. There were I came up with four things that I was really looking for from the program. One was that I wanted to learn from really knowledgeable people. So I knew the reputation of Crummer. I've lived in Winter Park for a long time. In fact, I lived very close to Rollins. So I knew Crummer by reputation, and I knew that the professors I was going to be learning from were going to be very bright and it was going to be challenging, but challenging in a good way. I also knew that I wanted to learn from the students that I was sitting in class with. And again, this goes back to the reputation of Crummer. I knew that Crummer was a place that would attract students who sort of, in a way, let me see if I can articulate this, weren't just looking to get a degree or a certificate, but were truly looking to learn. There are plenty of places that you can, you know, find a program that you can put on your resume. I think Crummer is different. I don't have any data to prove that, but that was how I felt about it, and it turned out to be true. I turned out to be sitting in class with other very I shouldn't say other, but I was sitting in class with some very bright, very ambitious, very accomplished people. And I learned as much from them as I learned from the professors who were leading the class. And the classes were typically very engaging and interactive. So there was a lot of conversation and dialogue that happened in that class. I also knew that I wanted to expand my network and that the people that I'd be sitting in class with, I wasn't going to have a relationship. At the time, my program was 13 weeks. I know now it's a little bit shorter, but I knew that that relationship wasn't just going to be a 13-week relationship. There were going to be people that I'd be able to call on and learn from and access their knowledge after that. And that certainly turned out to be true. Um, and then finally, the thing that I wanted, again, I live in Winter Park and I run my business based in Orlando. I wanted to have a relationship with Rollins and Crummer itself. And in fact, evidenced by the fact that Van and Molly called and asked me to speak. Obviously, I've been able to create that relationship with Crummer, with Rollins, and in fact, I've gone back and done other programs. I did the Leadership Mastermind Alliance. I'm not sure if that program still exists, but that was an amazing program. I've gone back to seminars and workshops and been invited to see other speakers who have come, and so that's been another part of it. So the professors, the students that I was surrounded with, the network that I was growing, and then my ongoing relationship with Rollins and Crummer were really the things that I was looking for. I do want to go back to the curriculum for just a second. You know, like I said, I was really looking to learn more practical and applicable skills about my business. And that's really the way that I thought about it was, okay, I need to understand the finances of my business better. I need to understand our accounting better. I need to understand some metrics and measurements that will help me grow and scale my business. Again, I needed to know HR. What I didn't really think about was that it would give me the language to be able to talk to the professionals who consult on my business, right? Like anybody, I have attorneys who work for me, I have accountants who work for me, I have HR and benefits professionals who work for me. And, you know, I think that I was smart enough to be able to communicate with them before, but coming out of that program, I had the language to be able to speak to them and be a little bit more, I don't know, just to challenge them and to make sure that they were doing what was best for us because I understood what they were talking about. I still can't do my own accounting. I still can't do my own HR and benefits, but I do know the questions to ask, and I do know what's right and wrong and what our needs are. And that was so learning that language and having that foundational knowledge of those areas, even those will never be my areas of specialization, was hugely valuable. And then there was something that happened that I didn't really think about, and that was that both in the course of my business, where we get hired to, you know, to be the marketing consultants and experts for different clients, and also my work in the community, sitting on nonprofit boards and things. Suddenly, I wasn't just the guy who sat in those rooms who knew marketing and advertising and branding. I was the guy who sat in those rooms and knew business. And I could look at the financials of the nonprofits I was sitting in and understand their balance sheet and P&L and be able to have an opinion about what was going on and have suggestions and advice for them based on that deeper knowledge that I had about that. And in working with my clients, I wasn't just giving them advice on advertising and marketing anymore. I was giving them true strategic advice around how to run and grow and expand their business. So again, they typically I get brought in because I'm quote unquote the marketing guy, but they quickly find out that I know a lot more than that, and that came from from that education and learning that language. So I really appreciate that. It's really helped me to grow, again, grow my business, grow personally, grow professionally, and grow in the community. Yeah, I think that covers a lot of ground. Again, I will tell you, I guess lastly, that I guess part of it, going through that program was also just affirmation of the value of ongoing education. Again, when I started the program, I wasn't looking for a degree. I wasn't looking for an MBA. I didn't need to beef up my resume. I wasn't going out in the job market. I needed real skills, and that's what I got. And it also, gave me, made me just think about, what do I need next? And I have, like I said, I've continued to go back to school and take different programs, both at Crummer and elsewhere. I recently completed a program at the Harvard Kennedy School over the course of a few years that was a phenomenal program. And again, I know that part of the reason that I started that and really enjoyed and made the most out of that was knowing the value of that ongoing education that sort of started with the Mini-MBA program. I think that the things I'm talking about are things that are applicable to most everybody. I interact with a lot of people in this community, a lot of my peers who are business owners or entrepreneurs or just leaders in their businesses or just leaders in the community. And I can tell you that the things that I got out of the Mini-MBA program are things that would be valuable to just about anybody. And that's pretty much my story. I love Crummer. I love the program. I love continuing to be engaged and involved. I'm hugely flattered that Van and Molly called and asked me to share my thoughts. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or tell you more, but I think that's a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark. We appreciate your insight and being here today to speak to everyone. Does anyone have any questions for Mark?
I have one. He did anything about homework.
You're asking me when I did homework or how much homework there was?
How much?
Actually, Molly could probably answer that question. The truth is, I don't remember. I know this is going to sound really weird, but and this is sort of true for all the different things that I've done in both Crummer and the Kennedy School and the stuff I did with the Leadership National. When you enjoy the learning, the homework is not, it doesn't feel the same as it did when I was an undergrad and I was worried about making grades. I truly wanted the knowledge. And so the homework felt like it wasn't just a task I was completing to check a box or to make a grade. It felt like something I was doing that was going to help me. So I can't tell you that I remember exactly how much homework it was. It couldn't have been too much. I had 3 young kids at home at the time and managed a lot of other responsibilities, and somehow I made it through. Yvonne, I am sure that you can handle it.
Yeah, Yvonne, it's not too bad. Usually there's some sort of pre-work. It depends on the faculty member in the session. Just some readings, articles, things like that usually. Um, but on that note, I will bring it over to Dr. Marshall to give the faculty perspective on the program.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Molly and Vanessa. And my goodness, Mark, we're so proud of you and what you've accomplished. And you're one of the many, many, many folks who've been with us in all sorts of programs that started out doing great things and then continue to do even greater things. And so thank you for giving us some of your time and insights today. We thought it would be good to have the opportunity to give everyone who's thinking about this a little bit of the faculty perspective. And so my background is I'm a sales and marketing guy from way back. I didn't hatch into a PhD program at age 22. My background really in industry was started out in retail business a long time ago when the little Target that grew up to be the big Target was, I think when I started with the company, we had about 40 stores. And moved from that role over to consumer packaged goods with a couple of major branding companies in CPG, and worked as a product manager for those. And at a point in my career, after about 10 years of that industry track, I decided what I really wanted to do future was to go back and get a PhD, and then to be able to work both as a professor and doing some meaningful work with organizations, mostly in the marketing space. And what led me to come to the Crummer School, my first job out as a professor was over in Tampa at USF. I was there for 8 years. But when I interviewed over here and found out what our business school is all about, my reaction was I could connect completely with everything Mark has said about his view of Crummer, because this is a place that really values translation to business practice. And what we do in your sessions as faculty, as every single one of the people that you'll be working with have substantive experience in their fields of business. And I just love that about Crummer, because maybe you have, I certainly did, particularly as an undergraduate where I did my undergrad, and a little bit even as MBA. I had some faculty who really had not been out there doing it. And I just believe that the program that you're considering is one of the best of its kind. I know a lot of people who teach in a lot of them. The other thing I wanted to share was that Vanessa Kannemeyer brings with her a great deal of humility, but she and I came to Crummer at the same time, basically. And she had had great experience in similar roles up at the University of Kentucky. And I will tell you this about Vanessa. She has, for the last 20 years, been one of the leading figures in the entire university business executive ed space. She's held very high positions of office in the main group that kind of leads these types of programs around the country. And so my pitch to you really is, from the faculty perspective, and Mark, I'm glad you said what you did, because what we want to do is we want to have a dialogue with you, and we want to have conversation, and we want to get topics out there, but it's not somebody with the slide set and talking at you at all. You typically are going to feel that you walk in, or if you're on the online version, you log in and you look at your watch, and 2 hours later, you feel like, wow, how did the time go by? And we feel that too, as the professors in the program. And I think that's very important as you're making choices about where you would like to invest your time and your energy, is that not all the programs out there are, first of all, as well led as this one by Vanessa and her team. Second, the faculty here legitimately are people who've done it out there in the industry space. And that's more rare than you may think in many business schools. And the third part of it is that, and Mark alluded to this too, it's just the culture of the Crummer School and of Rollins in general. It's a very good place to hang your hat. And I guarantee you, if you do decide that you want to join with this cohort, very rapidly you'll begin to be very Crummerized and very Rollins sort of indoctrinated, because this place has a really special aura to it, and you'll immediately feel welcome. You'll immediately feel part of what's going on with Rollins. So I'm going to stop with that and turn it back over to our moderators and see what questions you all may have for Mark and myself, or for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So does anyone have any further questions? I know we've got about 20 minutes still for either the Crummer M&EE team or Greg or Mark.
I do have a question, and maybe you already answered this. If you did, you have to forgive me. But if this is something that we did and we're like, oh, we really enjoyed this process, we might want to get a regular MBA. Is any of this applicable to an MBA, or is it just for the certification only?
So since it's not a credit bearing program, not on the credit side, but we do offer a discount towards that MBA. So the tuition that you pay for the mini MBA would go towards that full MBA. Any other questions? Alrighty. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Dr. Marshall, for your faculty perspective, and of course, Mark, for your alumni perspective. If you have any further questions or concerns that come a little bit later, please let us know. Reach out to me, Vanessa, Laura, any one of us, and we can surely answer your questions and work with you on anything that you might need. And I apologize for the technical difficulties with freezing a little bit. Not sure what happened there, but I appreciate your guys' patience and understanding on that. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a lovely rest of your Wednesday, and we hope to see you in the program here in June.